It's a happy and blessed Thursday. It's the day before Valentine's Day, and some people are gearing up to celebrate on both sides of the divide here. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka, and I'm here with my brothers. Hi, Jeffrey. You look good, by the way.
Thank you.
I like your suit.
Thank you. So what would you
You
be
look
doing
good
on
too,
Valentine's
Kayode.
What's the divide? What would you be doing on Valentine's Day?
I'll be celebrating somewhere on the island, celebrating myself. And that's a good thing, really.
Where's the divide? I'm sorry. You said on both sides of the divide. So.
Yeah, well, both sides.
It made us politicians when we don't even have a registered party in Parliament. Welcome to the program, by the way. I'm Jeffrey.
CMB party.
You can tell that there's that excitement in the air, and I think Valentine's does that. We're up bright and early nonetheless. I'm Kayode Okikulu, and we have a package for you today.
So what's going on? What are you tracking, Bukola?
What are you tracking, Kayode? Besides Valentine's.
Besides Valentine's, right? Because I think it's naturally what is on everybody's, not everybody's lips. Most people, a lot of people, you know what? On the lips of people here and there.
The people that have the money to spend, right?
That's the thing. I'm not sure you need to have a money. So I know there's the economy around some of these other festivities or what have you. So there's the economy of Christmas, right? There's the economy of Ramadan. There's the economy of Valentine's in this case. There's the economy of Thanksgiving or Black Friday, all that. There's the real economy around it, and there's the commemoration itself, what the season means. And I think for a lot of people, they get carried away by that economy. So you want to impress and buy a huge teddy bear that is maybe ₦1 million. You want to buy roses, real roses, not plastic roses, because you've seen that it is done in other climes. And a stick of roses, if I tell you right now, you probably change your mind. Or you want to buy I don't want to mention brand of a vehicle now, but you know, one of the high-end vehicles for your person. In fact, someone sent me a list of private jets to buy. My wife, I think I forwarded it to the group just in case you guys have ideas. But that's the economy around it. But more importantly is a thought, okay? So you don't have to go all out, right? Just show love in the simplest of ways. And I shared some days ago, you could write a note, right? You could bake a cake, right? You could actually bake a cake with a pot. If you go on YouTube, you find ways to actually do simple things, all right? You don't have to break the bank. I imagine that with 10,000 naira or 20,000 naira or even 5,000 naira, you should be able to celebrate somebody. So that's my two cover this morning.
However it works for you, just do as you can.
Yeah.
Even if you can't do anything, just smile at each other. If you can buy big gifts like private jets, that's cool and fine as well.
We don't mind, right?
If you can take all of us out, what do they call it? All expense paid trip. We'll do maybe we'll do a TMB from the skies. That would be nice, right?
No,
what about the idea? That's not a bad idea. So we come on the morning show and you're seeing us in one of those flights, and we're just sitting down doing our thing, airborne. That would be beautiful. But the message is quite simple. Do the best you can within your own ability and leave the rest to God. The economy is already quite tough, so don't overstretch yourself. Being a Nigerian itself, I think I will continue to say this, somewhere in your CV, it may look funny and even ludicrous, but add there, I am a Nigerian. And if you ask a question, say it's part of your qualification, because you're resilient, you're dogged, you can do just about anything. The things that governments have put us through, and we keep surviving every government, we deserve an award, trust me.
I would say it's not in the big things. It's not in the phones, iPhones, the big packages. It's in the little things that we do for our loved ones this particular season. You could write poetry, you know, affirming and reaffirming your love for your loved one. You could put a catalog together of the memories that you shared together from the first time that you met up until the time that you're with them. You could surprise them, you know, take them to the place where you met them, you know, with blindfolds, and present them with the littlest and the simplest of gifts. The celebration of love is in the intention.
Lovely ideas, Bukola. What's going on, Bukola? You should be a consultant.
Not necessarily in the cost of the gifts. It's in the everyday things that we do. It's in the calls, right in the middle of the day, you know, just to let them know that you're thinking about them. It's not in the big things. It's in the little things that we do every day. And besides Valentine's Day, there are some other category of people that we love to track here on the program that are showing themselves love, maybe the other kind of love, and it's our politicians with defections every day, accusations every day, and counter accusations every day, and the confident talking about what is to come in 2027. It appears as if with each month drawing us closer to 2027, the intentions of politicians are clearer. And so we hear the National Publicity Secretary of the Labour Party saying yesterday that the exit of one of the party's stalwarts from 2023 is good riddance to bad rubbish. But really, we recall right here on this set also, when Mr. Arabambi was set against the chairman of the party, and he brought all forms of accusations. But he has since, changed positions, maybe not defected, and he's gone back to supporting the chairman of the party, Mr. Julius Abure. So it just speaks to how fleeting politicians can be. And what is even more shocking is the exit. Of course, he said it before now, of Nollywood actor and stalwart of the party from the Labour Party. When he joined the party and he began supporting Mr. Peter Obi, it was a wave, with the strength of his support and how he spoke passionately about the Labour Party at the time. Many attested to, his potentialities as a politician coming out beyond his acting skills. And then, we see that exit. So, we should just let them continue to play out the drama, and it tells us what goes on in the background and what the real intentions of politicians are really. We should look at what they do rather than what they say. Guys?
I totally agree with you. Look at what they do. Let's repeat that again. Look at what they do than what they say. Stop bothering yourself about politicians being politicians. They will continue to be politicians. Me, I'm bothered about what you do with politicians, not what politicians do with themselves. But, guys, what are we doing today?
Well, we're talking about the power situation. Do you have, as I say, light in your area?
Is there NEPA in your area?
As they say, right. And, it's become a familiar story now. Once again, the national grid has collapsed. Yeah. Or they want to use the term erratic, display or some sort of disturbance here and there. Will we ever find a solution to this issue? That's the real question. Well, a power expert will be joining us to understand the reason behind these constant collapses, how we can fix it, perhaps with better technology today.
Besides that, we'll be talking about security. We always bring you security tips about how to empower yourself amid danger, studying your environment, protecting yourself. So today, the specific aspect we'll be focusing on will be what are the steps you can take to ensure that your neighborhood and communities can be safer. How can we key into the community policing and neighborhood initiatives? Our security consultant, Mr. Detuberu, will be, as usual, the dependable go-to man for this conversation today.
Drug abuse is other conversation we will be having on the program. It's a global phenomenon eating into families, both nuclear and extended, and by extension, the community. What can we do? Maybe not to eradicate, but to, reduce the impact on all of us. It will be part of the conversation today on the program.
But that's not all. We go over to the arts, where we'll be joined by contemporary artist and curator Ifeanyi Chukwu Oraimeka, who will be taking us through her creative process, as well as her journey in the creative industry. Yeah.
And last but not the least, women in STEM. We, piggyback on the celebration of the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and we'll explore how increasing participation of women and girls can foster advancement in all sectors.
Don't forget, this is all part of what we will do, or this is what we'll do today on the program. You can be part of it. And remember, X is a social media you can go to air your views, CTV Morning Brief, and we'll get to amplify your voice, as well as our WhatsApp number. You can also go there as well, and we'll get to amplify your voice. But guys,
let's introduce our email.
Oh, email,
for the very first time, making its debut. You'll see it on your screen, and I'm sure you've seen it time and again. the morning brief at channelstv.com.
So send your emails. Okay, you know, on X you may not be able to write for long for those who maybe didn't pay for the dollars, but you can write as lengthy things as you want there, and we'll try and, you know, break it down the much we can. Okay, let's get to the papers, guys. Which paper are we starting with today? I think we should start with the Tribune, Nigerian Tribune. That's the very first paper headline we'll be looking at on part of the dailies. Tax reform bill survive in rep scale second reading. Lawmakers back NGL's position on VAT sharing formula, which is 50 for equity, 20 for population, and 30 for derivation. Call for stiff penalty for tax evaders, erring public fund managers, kick against issuance of exemption to boost revenue generation, back existence of third fund, Naseni, and Midday. It looks like the governors won on all fronts when I look at, because literally this is what they wanted. But the only thing I didn't see them include here is a reduction of the CIT for companies. That is a major incentive, and I'm happy there's a public hearing. So if you have any other addition or think you object to that is being on this, please head down to the nation's capital, Abuja, when the public hearing begins, because this is going to affect all of us. So CIT, the proposal from the governor is that don't increase tax on, I think there's another tax we're supposed to increase. Because of that, don't also reduce CIT. But I think we need incentives for struggling companies across board, small and medium scale enterprises and the big ones, so that they can continue to employ people. Section 100 and 101 also clearly stipulates penalties for if you don't collect the VAT. If you collect the VAT and you don't file at the right time, there are all kinds of penalties. So avail yourself of the end tab and find out exactly what the content of that bill says. I'm hoping that proper fiscalization will be done so that every transaction will be captured electronically, because that's how we can get derivation in the places of consumption for all of us to have. And I think every form of government expenditures to be captured, so that we'll catch those that are giving bribe and taking bribe. That's why it's hard. Paper to trail paper is very hard.
And you know, Jeffrey, you hit the bullseye when you say that everyone should be involved. I'm particularly interested in what the final outcome would be for the proposal of reduction on, you know, payee for salary earners. Labour was emphatic about its position, you know, that should also sail through. I wonder what the position of the governors were, you know, because at the initial stage of the proposal, they were opposed to the derivation, a bit of it, because they said they couldn't pay salaries as a result. But what about making life a little easier for workers? So that is just as critical. Everyone should, you know, keep those bills close to their chest so they see, you know, what is coming to them as a benefit. The Nigerian News Direct is up next this morning, and it's particularly, you know, focusing on Labour's position on the 50% tariff hike. Don't forget there are reports that you know, some telecoms companies have begun implementing it. So here it is. NLC declares telecom boycott over 50% tariff hike. Urges workers to disconnect daily. You find details of the story on page 7 of News Direct, but it's the practicality that you'll now decide for yourself. So can you disconnect daily? Some people particularly, you know, depend on telecommunication services for their work. 70 to 80% of their work depends on their ability to communicate for about 12 hours of the productive day. So how can they possibly boycott? I wonder if NLC has thought this through before this particular call on boycott. How practical is it? Well, you decide that.
Are you saying it doesn't make sense?
I haven't said that. I'm asking questions. Kayode,
I'm just
very
wondering
critical questions.
I'm wondering what you're getting at. Are you saying it wasn't well thought through, or?
Well, you make up your mind, Kayode. You're going to post videos, right?
Is it too hard to disconnect?
Very soon. And
just disconnect.
And are you not going to use data to post videos?
I'm not NLC. I'm just saying for the people.
But you edit with
NLC
data, by the way.
made that decision and said,
Kayode,
disconnect, and you're saying, I hope they've thought it through. Do you know what? Do you know how big the NLC
you edit
is?
videos with data, right?
The NLC is a large organ.
Okay.
Please.
Let's take one more story. Ignore Kayode and I this morning. Well, that part of the conversation. There are some stories right here at the top corner of the Nigerian News Direct. I'll take just one. And it's Jeffrey's favorite, by the way. Leadership tussle PDP NWC backs BOT governors, affirms Ude Okoye as national secretary. So what are they doing about the deal of defection from their party to the ruling party? Let's leave it there for the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
The question is, what can they do, really? Very, very dire times. This is 2027 in the making. But let's turn our attention to this Nigeria. This Nigeria is next. And this is on health. There you have it. FG targets elimination of cervical cancer by 2030. To concentrate on preventive measures, plans to extend screening, immunization to rural communities. I think it was last week or so, the World Cancer Day, where we had a major conversation about cancer. We spoke to a survivor, and some of the issues around availability of not just the infrastructure now, but manpower as well. Big deal. You understand, one oncologist to what is it, even more than 1,000 Nigerians, it's meant to be 1 to 250. So these are the major issues affecting cancer care in Nigeria. And whether it's affecting you directly or indirectly, the truth is everybody has felt the impact of cancer one way or the other. Some indirectly, some directly. So it's important to have these conversations. And you see, just beside the big picture, an issue we raised yesterday, UNIZIK begins probe as female student bites lecturer. NANS condemns act. It was quite interesting to see people, just talk about that thing, about how things will have played out if it was in their school. To hear from the girl as well, she actually put out her own side of the story. But the school authorities say they will investigate. I know a lot of people were saying, what is there to investigate? We know what happened, but investigation is really important. We have to ensure that both sides are heard. There are things you may have missed in that video. By the way, there's a huge part of the video missing, right? So let's wait and see how the investigation goes. But that's the front page of this Nigeria today.
All right, now head to the Blueprint newspaper. Just bottom, not on below the nameplate. Okay, let's begin from there. Troop neutralized Kachala Nafaransa Dogon Bakwalo. Others in Zamfara and Sokoto. Over 40 enclaves destroyed. So this is a good one coming in from troops from the great work they are doing up north, where some of these terrorists have been terrorizing Nigeria. So we continue to record this scorecard. I know Toriji Bello is on the run. He's still being searched for. If he's caught or neutralized, that would be one of the biggest achievements in recent time because of the havoc he's wreaked in parts of Zamfara state and in parts of the north. But besides that, we also have the PDP crisis festering. Otom Ayahu orders Sean disciplinary panel. Ex-Benue governor threatens legal action. NWC faction affirms Ude Okoye. Ikimi panel picks March the 4th as new date. Insists chieftains duly invited. So this has been the back and forth within the PDP, from the division in the NWC to who is a national publicity secretary, to the disciplinary committee, and there's a disciplinary committee, there's a reconciliation committee. They're about to set to work, and they've invited some of the top guns in the party. In the 2023 election, there was enough anti-party activities to go round, especially within the PDP. Open anti-party activity. So perhaps they want to put your house in order, but it looks like some of the men who were at the vanguard of the anti-party activities, allegedly, let's use the legal term now, are putting out, look, we're not coming, we're going to take you to court. So the PDP, everybody is just literally watching what will be and what will come out of this PDP crisis. But the earlier they put their house in order, the better. The PDP is struggling, the Labour Party is struggling and arguing. Even the APC itself, they have internal issues, just that they're empowered, so they kind of manage it a little better than the other ones. So, but it's a build-up to the 2027 election. But sad to say, sometimes when I say these things, I feel also sad that we're talking about 2027 election, when the policies of President Tinubu's administration will not really seen, it's...
No, Jeffrey, I think you should be categorical. We haven't seen. Not that we haven't really seen. You look at the inflation figures, they're there. Look at, other economic
we're already
indicators.
Talking about 2027.
They're there. We're talking about 2027 already.
Already, so Nigerians is biting hard in terms of food, in terms of cost of living. Businesses are complaining. I'm happy again to announce I had to send a text to NECA DG. I had him on lunchtime. The day after, or that day, they suspended the FOB charge. You know, customs put in a 4% FOB, and then the MPA port charge of about 15%. We've now heard from the MPA side that customs have actually suspended theirs. And we've said it's good to be aggressive with revenue, but you need to do it to the human face. Else, the things you're trying to achieve is not going to be counterproductive. So that's a good one. So what we're saying in essence is that Nigerians are struggling. The average Nigerian is really struggling, and politicians are talking about the next election. These guys, I don't know. Anyway, is that all we can take for today?
Yeah, that will be all for the paper review, and be time to start off with the segment, right? Or are we taking a break?
Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get to that conversation of the national grid collapsing. We've said this again, Bukola Sai prophesied. Well, I'm sorry, the right things have not been done. After this collapse, it will collapse yet again. But let's see what technology can do, maybe to reduce the collapse, not that it will not collapse. We'll be right back after this. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's before we get to that very conversation about the grid, let's talk about what you've been saying on social media, and we will begin with the blackouts in Abuja, Lagos, and other states in Nigeria as the national grid experienced what they call disturbance. Well, that's what the professionals call it. They say there's a difference between collapse, disturbance, all kinds of technical names, but the rule is simple. If we don't have light, we don't have light. So we don't have light, or we didn't have light. Some people have light right now. Let's see your reaction. Sunday Truck said, you said another power outage. Seems like these things, I wanted to say they're happening too often. Hopefully they will address the root causes soon. Okay, Bukola, you have the next one.
And speaking of the next, it's Hot Lessing. Interesting name as the next speaker this morning. And here's what you're saying about the power outage. You have just 2 lines for us. You said it's time for Nigeria to invest heavily in electricity supply infrastructure. Speaking of investment, the investment in the national budget for 2025 in the power sector is quite heavy, running into trillions of naira. And according to reports, only about 4% of the budget is for personnel. So what happens to that's personnel cost? What happens to the rest of the budget? How, judiciously is it expended, to tackle the concerns in the power sector? And, it's reminiscent of what the EFCC boss said last year about corruption being endemic in that sector. So indeed, the anti-graft agencies should be taking a second and a third and a fourth look at practices in that sector as far as procurement is concerned, maintenance, and all the others. Kade, you have the next comment.
I think the next one is coming from Enigma. It says it's no more collapse, it's now disturbance. Instead of making efforts to bring lasting solution to the situation, we're now literally looking in the dictionary for the best word to address the situation. Bukola, you have the next one.
Speaking of the next, this morning there's Jerry Agada. Jerry Agada says disturbance is never a technical term in the power system. They're afraid to refer to it as grid collapse, as it always is. I like that variation. Yeah. Grid collapse, disturbance, maybe two sides of a coin.
It tripped off. Whatever it is, what happens eventually is that you don't have light. So that's how we internalize it.
What happens is that our power sector is suffering from epilepsy and it needs to be treated.
But the special advisor to the president of energy, Olu, I find it hard to pronounce it,
Varane,
she had mentioned that because of the ban A being removed from subsidy, because we still pay subsidy for power anyway.
Yeah.
65% of the cost is being covered from that ban A. So 35 is still being subsidized, which comes about 200 billion naira monthly. So you can do the math yourself, and it clearly tells you that we spend in the region of maybe 2 trillion or so, if my math is correct, to subsidize electricity for band B and below. So perhaps they are giving us a teaser that we're coming for you, those of us who are on band. I think I'm on band B. I guess you're on band B. Don't put me on band A, thank you. I'm happy where I am.
I'm not even sure what band I'm on at this rate. I think for some people, they just want power.
Yeah.
Just want power. And I think it's not too much to ask for. But let's turn our attention to yet another important bit of our livelihood, and that's communication. And power, I'm not sure which one is most important, but for some, communication is more important than power. But after a while, you then need power to recharge or to charge your communication devices.
Power is more important than anything, trust me. Everything sits on power.
So not communication as in telephone communication. I mean communication.
Yeah. So everything you're doing with communication relies on power.
No, not just telecommunication. I'm saying communication as human beings.
Okay.
Yeah. So communication will naturally come first. Then we can talk about power, but then the telecommunications bit.
Telecommunication is what we're dealing with.
So the NLC, as we said earlier on, has given those who are willing to participate in this an ultimatum. You have how many hours left? 3 hours, 30 minutes to begin to boycott some of the telecoms providers.
And your time starts now.
Yeah, by 11 a.m. today, the NLC has directed workers and other willing citizens to boycott services of telecommunications giants. So I'm not sure if this is even to help the cause of the telcos, because that's when you now realize that I need their services, right? We need their services to survive. So the first user, as you can see, says, boycott it and start using what? We should go back to the days of letter writing, which will be bad. Tomorrow is Valentine's, right? So you could actually write letters tomorrow. But from what you see, this user certainly isn't boycotting at all.
Abdurrahman says, we'll take this serious. I swear we'll succeed at the end. Guys, repost this and tell your colleagues, please. Post it on your Facebook and WhatsApp status. Let it reach the masses. Let's do what we did to maybe, was it this cereal brand now? For those that know. Anyway.
I think that's sarcasm, right?
Well, it sounds like sarcasm to me.
It resembles it, as we say in Nigeria.
Because the brand, they said they try to boycott them, is still the brand.
Well, Joe Ajero himself turn off his phone from 11 o'clock. Maybe he should submit his phone, sir. What he should do, okay, I wanted to say something, and I realized that would be using data as well. I wanted to say he should live stream him, not calling him, but that would be it.
He can turn it, he can keep it on to monitor.
Monitor what?
And monitor the news. If we need to reach him and say, how's it going? So he can keep it on.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the next talking point. This time around, it's a video of the Nigeria police and soldiers fighting at a checkpoint in Jeddo, Delta State. Now, this is another all-time low. Do we have the video yet, or we just go to the first user, who is Mfong Abia, and here's what you're saying. Shame. What are they fighting for? What happened to dialogue? And there you have it.
So you can see the video.
Yeah.
We don't know the origin of this altercation. But if I'm around this area, I'm going to drive pretty fast, because these men are fighting, guns in their hands.
Carrying arms.
And then this one is just looking like who will win, that kind of situation. But this is embarrassing and shameful. I think the naval authority, I guess it's the Navy.
Yeah, because the blue, white,
it looks like Navy, but whichever arm of the military is this, they should quite absolutely investigate this between them and the police to know what really happened, who triggered this, and I think these gentlemen should be disciplined to serve.
Precisely, because these are men that are charged with the responsibility of maintaining law and order, and here they are, throwing caution to the wind, and this is right before the eyes of the international community. they are supposed to be ambassadors of the country.
I pity those policemen. If they take them inside that barracks, oh dear.
And the real enemies, could run riot. The real enemies of community could run riot at this point, and this is where they need their service, but look at what they are doing.
All right, Adetunji Adewolu, all of our military personnel must be well versed in the Nigerian Constitution and character building rules. Cardi.
And this definitely will be disturbing for a lot of people, seeing that not everybody enjoys to see fisticuff, particularly seeing the rifles, here and there. You're wondering, something could happen right now, and there are people around, so it could be a case of, this is not even accidental, use of gun. This is deliberate. The next user says all of our military personnel must be well versed. Okay, you took that already. Joseph Pope says, I don't think those guys are soldiers. That's the next user. Says, I don't think those guys are soldiers. They're Air Force. So soldiers is Air Force, Army. Soldiers basically means military, right? So I think a lot of people are used to using soldiers for the Army.
For the Army.
Yeah, so I think it just goes to buttress the point you're making. The Air Force, that's their color, blue and white, and this seems to be at their pay scale, and we mentioned that.
So there's Navy, Air Force, I don't know. Let them just fix it.
They're men of the armed forces, whether it's military, Air Force, Navy, or the Army itself. Well, Israel Akin is the last commentator, and you say, what happened again? Our security agencies are supposed to be having a proper understanding with themselves and working together for effectiveness. Resorting to fighting like this over pride of men and claiming superiority is absurd.
I think we should just go straight to the very last one, where the House of Reps is actually summoning customs boss and others over refusal to retire, threatening to arrest NIMC DG. So I don't understand. Is it that apparently they are due for retirement? This is the second time. I remember the last time I heard this was from Senator Godswill Akpabio, the president of the Senate, talking to the Service Commission within the National Assembly that they have to retire when their time is due. So what is going on with this not wanting to retire? And I think we've had an open invitation. I think I saw Customs on our sister program. We'd like to bring them here as well to have some of this conversation. We thank them for suspending the FOB. There are so many things we need to probe and ask questions around the Customs service. But apparently from the reps' statement, some people have reached either the age of 60 or they serve for 35 years, but they've just refused to go, according to what the law says. I don't want to go to the issue of the IGP and the amendment to the law. But Senator Archie says, what else do you expect? Simple law of the land, we are making it difficult. 60 years of age or 35 years of service, just go home. Simple as ABC. I know every government establishment has an intelligent young individual that both age and years of service will not bring issues. So when you refuse to retire, you stop people from being promoted and others being recruited. Guys, I don't know what's going on. How hard can it be to know when to retire?
And when some persons have reached the age of retirement, they're sort of exempt from the rules. Clearly, it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah,
so.
And I just need to go back to Joseph Pope's post. Joseph Pope, I need to recant, is that the word now, and retrieve that. Yes, soldiers are just in the army. So for the ones in Navy, there may be sailors and the rest. So you're correct. I think it's something that is loosely used. So yes, soldiers are just the army. So those wouldn't be soldiers. You'll either be sailors, well, not on the sea, but on the road this time around. Thank you, Joseph Pope.
And so we'll sail to a break now, and when we return, we'll set our attention on the power sector and talk, as we always do, about the need, very urgent need for solutions. So join us again. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the power sector. Disturbance, collapse, whatever term is used, at the end of the day, it clearly sends a simple message that all is not well within that sector. It's something we've known for many years. So many investors have come in, gone down the drain. There has been allegation, there has been probe, court cases. We can go on, but the most important thing is that we're here now. We need power. We have a potential of generating about 13,000 megawatts of power by the installed capacity of all our generating capacity in the country. But we barely do around 4, 5, 6 at max. What exactly is going on? How can technology help us, break that barrier? That's the conversation we'll be having with the Chief Executive, Circom Technologies, Chief Mr. Sylvester Uzoma. He joins us from Abuja studio. Thank you so much for coming on the program, as well as a Business Development Director at Cypher Crescent, Ania Kanudo, who joins us via Zoom. Thank you so much for coming on the program, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
All right, let me start with you, Ms. Uzoma, on this particular issue. It's almost a recurrent decimal. We've talked about this yet again, and I can almost guarantee that we'll converge and talk about this year, maybe multiple times, and the reasons are quite clear. So what can we begin to do differently? Because it appears right now we may not be saying it will not collapse, may be too ambitious. Reducing the number of collapse may be what is realizable. So what's your take on this?
Okay, so maybe for the context, we should work with
hydro plants.
Since that's the term that is flying around now. It's an unfortunate situation. Last year alone, we had 24 power grid collapses. We've recorded the first one in 2025 already. And according to World Bank data, we lose roughly about $28 billion as a result of power grid collapses. So it's something that really, really needs to be looked into and needs to be fixed. There are solutions available both on the long term and in the short term. First of all, we must tell ourselves the truth. Our infrastructure is very, very much in dire need of upgrade. System needs to be upgraded. It's no need saying that we've been trying to manage a very obsolete system for a long time, and we have to take the bull by the horn and start looking at how to carry out a massive infrastructure upgrade across the entire power sector. Secondly, even if your system is obsolete, the truth is maintenance is very key. If you're able to do a very regular maintenance, it's very possible for you to still maintain the power grid from this incessant collapse. And that's the area that I feel we need to spend more time looking into. And one of the key areas that I feel needs to be looked further into is in the area of vandalization of power infrastructure across the country. I don't believe we're paying the right type of attention to this to be able to ensure that we are not reporting the failures, but we are trying to ensure that we nip the failures in the bud ahead of when they happen. More often than not, when you hear of a power grid collapse, it's as a result of vandalization that has taken place along one of the major value chain channels of the power sector. So the issue we should be focusing on more seriously is how do we ensure that these power infrastructures do not in any way become susceptible to vandalization. And I think we need to tweak the solution we're presently more or less focused on, which is the kinetics. Sending boots to the ground to go around and be looking and monitoring, I don't think that is a very smart idea. And as the word smart says, we need to look at smart ideas of how to get this infrastructure away from vandalization. I think that is one of the key ways we can ensure we win this fight, or at least ameliorate further issues of power collapse, disturbance, whatever new term it is we want to adopt. Bottom line is, we don't have power in the house, in our homes, in our offices, in our business operations and industries. We're risking increasing the $28 billion loss on a yearly basis to even higher figures. Bear in mind, $28 billion is almost close to our national budget, annual national budget. So it's not a joke, it's not something we need to toy with. It's time to take off the kid gloves and deal with this thing holistically.
All right, Mr. Anyekan, I would like to come to you. He's profiled a solution that our tactics, our measures are really know what it should be in terms of the kind of result. The numbers are quite scary. If we're losing almost 30 billion, our budget right now is in the range of, with the increment to 54, that should be about 32 or so, 31, 32 billion dollars. So if we're losing that significant amount to collapses, disturbances, or whatever name they choose to call it, then it's a cause for concern. Shouldn't we be having a state of emergency on the power sector and just use a whole year to fix it? What do you propose?
All right, yeah, thank you very much. I think a state of emergency is long overdue, and I also strongly believe that the authorities, especially the federal government, is aware. That is why they've also come up with some policies to ignite a lot of development in that area. Because if you look at what are the major causes of the regular grid breakdown, I think we had close to 12 breakdowns last year. We've had like 2 this year. It's sometimes you have disruption in gas supply because our energy generation and generally is more. You need to generate before you can transmit. So the collapse is sometimes majorly because of the aging infrastructure, and sometimes when you carry out maintenance and all this, and you think all is well. So I think technology would come to the rescue, and it's not something that we shut down completely to overhaul, because a lot of losses must have occurred as a dead. There need to be some strategic upgrade. We need to try and adopt some technologies that could help us manage the grid better. First of all, very important is that the grid needs to be decentralized, and I think we're very happy that the federal government, via the Electricity Act of 2023, have empowered state and private sectors to come into this to be able to also generate and distribute. I'm sure that would take a lot of pressure from the national grid. So we apply something like this, a smart grid monitoring system, where you have sensors and you connect the entire or a good part of the national grid to IoT, where we could begin to look at predictive maintenance, where we don't need to wait for the collapse to occur before maintenance, reactive maintenance is taken into consideration because of the capacity of what we install at the moment. So we begin to bring in IoT sensors for smart monitoring. So sometime, maybe way before it occurs, you could know areas that have been overloaded, overheated, because sometimes it's overheating. Maybe you thought you've loaded what is adequate, you've given enough safety gap, but something is wrong somewhere that hits up the system and transfers the stress to another part of the system, and you have that disruption. So if you have real-time monitoring of the grid, you could begin to have predictive maintenance. Something tells you something is about to happen. You could shed load in some areas. You could do some tactical maintenance without the shutdown. And one other one apart from the grid modernization is what I would say maybe some monitoring devices even at home. We could bring some energy efficient technologies at home, because oftentimes you see maybe like all of us are here today talking. How many of us can really say that all the appliances that are unused, that are necessary in our homes today or in our offices today, are being torn down? So if you have energy efficient technologies and smart apps that could also help us to monitor and help us turn down, switch off energy sources, appliances that are not in use, that could also help in moderating or optimizing whatever pressure we are putting on the national grid. This infrastructure are aging one. What is the maintenance procedure? Sometimes probably maybe you say you schedule maintenance after 3 years, but they are aging. After 3 years, maybe probably not too good enough. So predictive maintenance is very important, and awareness. Citizen awareness is very important, and you also have the other side of security. Of course, we all know also that part of the reasons for the frequent collapse is security concerns, where there are willful damages or vandalism of the system. So we could also step up security, applying technology as well.
All right, that's quite instructive. We hope that the operators would take note of predictive maintenance. Perhaps it will solve part of the problems that we're talking about. You know, when we talk about the power sector, some of the things that we also read is poor infrastructure and, you know, inefficiency of your supply of gas to the thermal plants, and as a result, there is not enough, they're not off taking what they should have taken, or there's not enough. But we recall that last year, President Tinubu commissioned gas plants in Imo State, and he also signed executive orders, you know, at the beginning of the first quarter of the year last year, some of which saw the reduction of, you know, operating costs, tax, you know, for operating companies. So if we have gas plants in Imo State that are supplying, I think, 500 mm of gas, and the promise was that it will increase gas supply to the power grid, why do we still record this level of inefficiency in the power sector? Speaking of the power grid collapse, that's for you, Mr. Ozuama.
Thank you very much. You need to understand that in the power arrangements within the sector, there are various blocks in the value chain. Yes, generation of power is one, but you also need to look at the transmission of power, and you also need to look at the distribution of power. All form very key components of the value chain. So the mere fact that you've made more power available or generated more power at one end, the question we should be asking is, how efficiently are we going to be able to transmit? And then what are the issues along the transmission? Before you now get to the injection into the distribution companies across the country, who then ultimately now have the challenge of taking it from their own end down to our various homes and various business units. So there's a lot involved. You can score very well in an area, set up a new generation plant, but it doesn't end there. Yes, we've celebrated the addition in Imo State, but the question still lies, how does that now get back into the inefficient system to produce better results? So that's why it still has to come down to very, very realistic future-based plans. We need to upgrade the entire system. We can't run away from it. Before we can see very meaningful results, the upgrade of our existing power infrastructure is very, very necessary. Now, short-term results, yes, more generation of power, maintenance of what we presently have, ensuring they don't get vandalized, looking at how to ensure that cost-effective measures are also put in place in the area of operationalizing electricity delivery. Yes, all those can come to play. But by and large, if you do not fix the entire system, you're still likely going to have pockets of success, but you still would not have a situation where people would say they are seeing the effects of those pockets of successes, because you're likely going to still have lots of power outages in various homes, offices, and industries. So I still believe in the short term, our aim and focus should still be more of securing what we have and trying to get the best out of it, which is where application of technology into the policing of all our power infrastructure becomes very, very imperative. And that, I think, is one area that can give us a quick win while we outlay a longer-term plan to ensure a more robust power infrastructure upgrade. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, you know, which is more important? Every aspect, you know, of the challenges with developing the power sector must be important. Either it's a lack of maintenance or the inefficiency of supply of gas, you know, to the grid, such that it can be, you know, taking off and supplied by the distribution companies. I'd like you to respond to the same question, Mr. Nakan, before we, you know, progress to management of resources. Please speak to why this infrastructure put in place by the administration, i.e. the gas plants, you know, are not making a difference in the supply of power at the end of the value chain. Mr. Aneka, that's for you.
Thank you very much. I think we really want to commend the effort of the government recently. the gas plant commissioning, and that's not the only one. There are a few others coming up and a lot of investment. Of course, you would know currently the decade of gas in Nigeria, so we don't expect an initiative that came up maybe barely weeks ago to begin to bring enormous change, because we are talking about what the scale is so much. And of course, you also would know that the president currently in Dar es Salaam promised that Nigeria would increase our energy mix by renewable energy mix by 50%. Before now, it was 30% by 2030. So just like we are trying to decentralize the pressure on the national grid, we should also begin to scale down our reliance on gas in terms of for power generation. Of course, currently we do about 15% hydro, which is not very sustainable because of the infrastructure around that as well. So imagine that by 2030, we begin to gradually expand into utilization of renewables like wind, like solar. To the mix. This would, of course, take away the over-reliance on gas, and also the pressure from the gas generation and distribution infrastructure. So before then, a lot still needs to be done in terms of maintenance. Like I said, very important predictive maintenance, very important the way we schedule the maintenance as well until we fully transit to a case of predictive maintenance. So there has to be some phased maintenance, isolated maintenance of the system, so that the major issue is that the system is aging, and we are bound to see this. Probably there have not been very effective management in the past, but the impact had not been much there because the aging was, of course, not also as serious as now. So it's hitting all of us, facing all of us, staring all of us in the face, and Channels is taking the initiative to talk about it, to conscientize the public and the government generally. So the government is also responding, and the private sector will need to key in. For example, for us in Cypher Crescent, we've invested a lot in energy distribution network optimization. Currently, we are working on a gas optimization system. So if we digitalize it, it now becomes very easy for us to track it. For now, everything is manual. If we digitalize the transmission system, we're able to optimize it, we're able to monitor it, and we're able to make it more efficient.
All right, Mr. Ozama, let's take it as we wind down. Let's take it to Mr. Ozama. Walk us through what we need to do, perhaps in the long term, because we're facing this embarrassment time and again, so we're already used to this, and we hope that we're going to get something done as quickly as possible. But as you said, the idea of decentralization and unbundling, if you will, is quite great. I know I think Enugu, Abia, a couple of states, I think Lagos has even gone through that process. They're in a particular phase of that decentralization. To avoid what is going on at the national level, what kind of things do the state need in terms of technology input to be able to, manage it more efficiently and even better than what we're seeing today, futuristically?
Bottom line, we need to all adopt the smart grid technology. Smart grid basically allows you to be able to monitor and implement your energy distribution, electricity distribution platform with data and intelligence right in front of you. That way you're able to optimize where supplies are required at what time and what periods of the day or year or month, and also to be able to cut down your wastages to the barest minimum. Allows you to become more profitable in operations. You're not operating based on estimates or guesses. You're speaking directly with facts. And these facts actually allow you to become more profitable in your ventures. Yeah, with the upgrade in infrastructure, like I mentioned earlier, it's only going to mean that our ability to cut waste becomes very pronounced. So yeah, even if you're looking at it at the state level, where most likely you're looking at an injection of microgrids into the system, some of them will still have to run through existing disco platforms. So we can't rule out the fact that most of our distribution companies still need to carry out some expected infrastructure development and upgrades as well. there's always a weak link, and the intention is to ensure that the weak link is at best or at worst giving us at least some level of efficiency above 60%. So it's a cyclic situation, but I believe well that at the heart of all of this still lies the fact that we need to carry out some much needed infrastructure upgrade.
All right.
While we're trying to manage what we have right now, there should be a long-term plan in place. The figures are allocated to the Power Ministry for 2025 look very, very impressive. But at the bottom of it should also be what exactly are we going to be achieving with these figures?
All right.
What kind of results are we looking at from them, and where should we be turning to next? The centralization of the transmission system is already a foregone conclusion. I believe it's something that the government should be working on pronto. We need to look at how the states can also provide their own power.
All right.
We need to look at how regions can provide power as well. So that way it puts less strain on what is already a very, very weakened power infrastructure at the national level, and allows us to start taking it more as a priority for national development.
All right.
$29 billion on an annual basis as loss is definitely not something we should be.
Ms. Ozama, that number, it hasn't left my head, $28 billion. That's... It's quite disturbing. Just as we wind down in 1 second, how much do we need basically for the country to run optimally in terms of megawatts? I know there are some cities that 40,000 megawatts running, just cities. What do we need? Just a quote by your assessment.
Our target should not be less than 20,000 megawatts in the immediate. I'm not saying that is going to be adequate, but you need to have a target that you can work towards in the short term, medium term.
Okay.
You should be looking at clocking 20,000 megawatts, hopefully before the end of this administration. That to me is a target that the government needs to prioritize. It's doable.
We're totally out of time.
The right sources and create a mix of them.
All right. Sylvester Ozoma, Chief Executive, Secom Technologies, as well as Ania Kanudo, Business Development Director, Cypher Crescent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on the program. We hope we can get this done as soon as possible to reposition the power sector. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, move on to another part of the conversation about security. Join us again.
Now, with 10 million Nigerians reportedly involved in active drug use, substance abuse, there's no telling, the impact of the damage of, this addiction or habit on the dreams and on the future of the productive youth of the population. I mean, some dreams are bottled up in bottles, in cigarettes, and in substances. But how do we break, that negative cycle? It's an ongoing conversation. We've demonstrated our commitment to this conversation consistently on this subject matter. And we're doing that yet again with this particular segment. So joining us this morning for this conversation is Mr. Humphrey Eboweme. He's a drug educator and advocate who joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, and thank you so much, sir, for joining us on the program.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
So let's start this way. We have this conversation time and again, and we see, the effort of the agency, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, to tackling substance abuse, and of course to getting, all of these, substances off of the system, the market. What is the progress that you've seen so far with this effort?
Anyway, from where I come from, Scotland, we've experimented drug education into schools, and half of the states of America and United States, we've done similar things there, which my partners, the Truth About Drugs, in California, we work in joint partnership. back to your question, Nigeria as entity, a country, they have some drug policies which are not really effective as per se. It's weakened. Their drug policies are weakened, and I've seen in 2021, 22, the new drug policy plan by Nigerian NDLA, which I think is a bit going forward. It's like kind of the achieving success. So by this 2025, so that data has not really come out to see if that implementation, prevention of drug has worked. But anyway, when I went through it, the plan is kind of is moving a bit forward, and I hope Nigeria as a country will come to adapt to those policies.
So what are the missing components of the drug policy that you would rather see that will make the fight against substance abuse more effective?
There's really no missing component. The problem is that it is not well presented, it is not well followed up by the Nigerian law enforcement agencies. I think that their agency, NDLA, was set up in 1989, and they had this drug act. They have the second one, which is the one for marijuana act, and some other, the one by NAFDAC in joint collaboration. But the key message is, I go with the word of James Borden, which says education is the key to anything you want to do. So in that aspect of education, Nigeria as a country has really lacked that moving forward when it comes to drug prevention, intervention, and treatment and rehabilitation. So the education is not there. So why touch life in Nigeria is the fact that we want to take it to the grassroots, whereby our kids, our children could be involved in drug awareness program. When they are taught in schools and brought this message to the school from the grassroots, they are less likely to experiment with drugs. So the more they know the effect and harmfulness of drugs, the more they are less likely to experiment with it. So if they don't know the danger, no, they're just there. So it's like I had a meeting with the commandant of NDLA Lagos State, Abubakar, and he said to me, I've had a series of people coming here talking about this same thing and all, but Touch Life is the only one that has actually come to the country to say, look, this is what we're going to do different. That education, everybody's just taking a holistic stuff, but though it's a multifaceted issues, so we have to approach it through educational standard with educational-based evidence, which we've implemented in Scotland and in United States. That is why I'm in partnership with Truth About Drugs.
So let's contextualize so that we can extrapolate. Where was it? So you've used two countries. You've used Scotland. You've also used the United States. And drug issues is literally endemic. It's literally everywhere. It's how it's addressed that is the most important thing. For us as a developing country, we already have a lot on our plate. So adding that is a lot of work. Yeah. So what was it in the States where you worked on these projects and Scotland, and where is it right now? So that we can say, where is it now in Nigeria in your books, and if we implement what you did there, this is what it can take us in 5 years, at least in the short term or medium term.
Yeah, what we've done is we have. That's why I was going to use that the toolkit. We have toolkits which we use for schools, which we give to kids, children, young adults, which they read. They get to know the fact and the truth about drugs, because all the drug dealers do or say, they lie. Everything they say to you, they lie. If you take this, it will make you party all night. If you do this, you will, sky's your limit and all. But at the end, when they experiment or they try it, being peer pressure, friends, experimenting things, want to know, get euphoria and get high, they tend to experiment it. But when you take it to the school and you tell them the danger involved, and good question you ask, some of the things is we've had some few incidents that have happened all over the world. Take somebody like Michael Jackson, for example. They will tell you he died of drug overdose or as a result of issues of drugs involved in whatever medication he was taking, he overtook it. Then take Whitney Houston for another example, which died of diazepam that was prescribed for her, but she was taking it. But the fact remains that the problem about drugs is not the drug itself. Is the community, is the people, is the stigmatization by some of those staffs, and how do they get out of it? But when we take this message to the school, they tend to know that these things are not good. If we have some good role models in Nigeria to show, like you guys, I watch you guys literally on my bed every day in Glasgow, and me sitting with you is a big privilege to see you guys, that the same guys I watch. I know my wife will be wondering, but what I'm trying to say there is, how do we take this message further? I feel this is kind of, in Scotland, America, I have enemies because we speak the truth, we tell them the truth. The government don't want to hear the truth. But now I'm not fighting my own people, so I'm bringing that same drama to Nigeria.
I'm glad you made reference to icons like Whitney Houston and Michael Jackson. And it shows that the information is out there about the dangers of drug use and the consequences. Yeah. So is it more the preventive approach of education, or we should look at the conditions that predispose potential abusers to taking it up as a habit that it now becomes incurable? And I'm referring, to the socioeconomic conditions back here in Nigeria, for instance, which predisposes young persons to seek escape, albeit, ill-informed, so to speak, from these things.
Yes, it is, in the sense that from what is happening when it comes to drug issues, it's never been discussed publicly. And the problem, as I said before, with drugs, is not the drug itself. It's we, the community, the people. How do we sit down and approach all these issues? What sort of preventive measures can we give? What sort of awareness? We're talking of campaign here. Let's take it. Let's do a workshop on campaigns on the issue and danger of drugs, so that they would know the harmfulness involved in drug taking. So if we don't do that, we keep getting to the height of it. When we get there, we're coming back again. Like I had a conference in ISOP, we deliberated about these preventive measures. And I said to them, it's not working if we don't go to the grassroots. Because I give you a typical example, like what is happening in the UK, and which some of my seminars or lectures, I talked about drugs or this drug peddling of issues. Now, why am I taking it to the schools? And what was my research all about? Is the fact that I have found out that kids of 10, 12, 11 years old are not the drug traffickers. It's not the drug dealers on the street that we chase and hunt, that the police stop every day. Drugs are now being pushed and being disseminated by children. While you're on the street waiting for the drug dealers, siblings give drugs to their friends, to their other things. They take it to school, give it to so and so person's brother. He's going to give you an envelope. People have phoned me up. They haven't listened to me. They were able to find out all these things. Some kids have 5 kg of heroin cocaine in their bags. But what do we parents do? We sat down.
Are these your findings in Scotland?
Yes.
So what are your findings about Nigeria?
Nigeria's own is that's what I'm saying, that we bring the drama to Nigeria, in the sense that Nigeria hasn't even got some of all these policies, all these things in place. They just live in like open world. Everything is just happening. So if we bring this message to the grassroots to let parents know that these things can happen, you can checkmate on your children. You don't have to distance yourself when your child have issues with drug problems.
So let's break it down for a moment. Go time. Let's break it down.
Yeah.
So let's talk to your parents who has boys, maybe girls, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
And how would you suggest, or I propose to those parents to be able to maybe be able to track and get to know whether or not those children are involved in some of these practices or not? Because that's the most important part of this conversation, families.
Okay, families. Most times when you see your kids' attitude, when they come in from school or from outside, you see their attitude changes. Then sometimes they shy away from normal sitting down in the front room discussing. They don't want to associate anymore with family, with other members of the family. Sometimes they lock themselves in their rooms and feel they're okay with what is going on. So you start to think. Then they are great in school. It's another big example. You find as a grade A student that was performing, doing very well, is not dropping. You as a parent, you start to wonder what is going on. If your child is not coming home with C or D grade, and you see he's been a straight A student, what is causing it? You get what I'm saying? So you tend to, so you look, you don't distance yourself from those children. You tend to encourage them, tend to find, the issue of drug is always very difficult to discuss.
Sorry, sir. So how do we start the conversation? Just like starting a conversation around sex with little children, or sometimes it can be difficult to start those conversations. How do you start those kind of conversation with the child to be able to trace what they are doing? Is it that you first search before you start the conversation, or you start the conversation before you search? What exactly?
Yeah, I start from where I stopped before as a parent. I give you a typical scenario. Kids, what we parents want to see, and what happens in case of Nigeria, Nigerians don't care, is we come from work, we see our children either in the ready room or on the dining table doing their assignment or their homeworks. That's all we parents want to say. That guy is a good child. And but what's going on? No parents. In most times I hold seminars and conferences, I ask people, have you ever checked your child's book bag? They come up with no, they've not checked. Because all we parents want to see is that these children are doing their assignment, they are okay. I bet you when you go to that child book bag, you will find what you are not supposed to see, either a weapon, drugs, or anything. So if you as a parent, you see such thing, you have to randomly check those things. Not when the kids are away. Then you cannot know where to start tackling that issues. Then how to bring that topic to discuss about it with them.
Yeah, and I think the high point of this would be building a strong sense of community around young people, such that we can deter indulgence or even, falling to peer pressure when it comes to drug use. Thank you so much for your time, sir. We've been talking with Mr. Humphrey Eboweme. He's a drug educator and advocate who has joined us right here in our Lagos studio. And a warm regards to Mrs. Eboweme in Scotland, who watches the morning brief every morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. From here, we head to the nation's capital, Abuja, where our security consultant is standing by. Ademola Adetuberu is always sitting and waiting, always on guard. Mr. Adetuberu, thank you so much for coming on the program. Can you hear me, Mr. Adetuberu?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic.
I hear you loud and clear.
All right, so let's get started with, we just spoke with somebody who is at the vanguard of ensuring that families are safe when it comes to the use of drugs and all of that. I know that we want to talk about strengthening community safety and all of those things, but maybe you can get one or two comments when it comes to what you've observed in terms of children using drugs before we get to the nitty-gritty of how to prevent crime in neighborhood.
Okay, thank you so much for that, and thank you for the last speaker. I think he hit a point when he said that parents should be more concerned about what's happening to their children, which is very true what he said, that when a child starts to withdraw, starts to stay in his room alone or a room alone, starts to not to mix with the family, definitely that's a signal, that's a point that something is going on. So if parent has a lot to do in shaping the community and the country globally. So if every parent, take up their responsibility by checking their children, their ward, then I'm sure we're going to be raising greater future leaders for our country tomorrow. If not, if we neglect that, then we have issues at our hand.
All right, Mr. Adetubero, let's get to the core of our conversation. How do we prevent crime around our neighborhood? So what tips do you have for us today?
Thank you so much for having me once again. So today we are looking at preventing crime in our neighborhood. And how do we do that? The first thing I would like to say is, what is Neighborhood Watch? Neighborhood Watch is an initiative. It's a community-led security initiative in crime prevention, set up by the community, not the police, by the community first, to share intel amongst themselves, watch out for suspicious activities, report all of this kind of intel, then collaborate, pass it on to law enforcement agency. So I have some tips for us today, and how do we strengthen Neighborhood Watch? The first thing I'm going to be saying, how do we strengthen Neighborhood Watch programs? I would like to encourage every community to form a Neighborhood Watch program in their community. You want to form a Neighborhood Watch. It's not the government that will do that for us. This is our responsibility. So form and organize a watch group. And how do you do that? Establish a structured neighborhood watch with clear roles for residents. The next thing that is so important that every community wants to also pay attention to is you want to make use of technology. You want to use technology like WhatsApp, like Telegram, community safety apps. You want to put yourself in this kind of, in this kind of groups where you can immediately share intel, real-time intel amongst yourself. During the day, at night, it's so important, for communities to take advantage of technology. The next thing that is so important for communities to do also is, these are responsibilities of the community. Another responsibility is patrol and check-ins. Patrols and check-ins. It's the responsibility first of the community to ensure their community is safe. So you want to have volunteers, and if you can, hire private security, to do patrols for your community. Check spots, very important spots, especially at night. You want to pay attention to who is entering your community, what are they doing in your community, who is the new person. You want to pay attention to all of that. The next thing that it's so important for all community, to also do is working with the local, working with law enforcement agencies. It's so important, not to just isolate ourselves, because when the chips are down, definitely you have to invite the law enforcement. So it's so important. Every community, should engage local authorities. Lastly, on strengthening Neighborhood Watch is reporting. We cannot stop talking about reporting suspicious activities. Even unsuspicious activities should be reported. Yes, you want to pay attention. Sometimes if you don't watch, you don't see. You just look. And looking, it's been said that eyes that look are many, but eyes that see are few. So it's important we all pay attention to that. The next thing is collaboration with law enforcement agency. Every community should have a system, a way where they collaborate with law enforcement agencies. And I'll start with community policing, which means engage police, engage law enforcement agencies in town hall meetings. Engage them in town hall meetings, share your concerns. Share your concerns with law enforcement agencies. Let them know where to come in. Don't hoard information. I was traveling to the north in the course of this week, early part of this week, and I was telling the people that we were together that in this place, when someone enters into this community, we know, people knows. So don't hoard information. Share intel with law enforcement agencies. The next thing that community also wants to do is anonymous tip hotlines. You want to have anonymous tip hotlines where people can freely report, and police can also take cue to that, where people can freely report. They can call you and tell you what they've observed, what they have seen, right? And immediately you can take action. The next thing is joint security drills. It's important for community to collaborate with law enforcement agencies by having joint security drills where we come up with case studies, scenarios. What about if you have an active shooter scenario, active shooter situation? How do we handle that, right? So it's important, for the community to collaborate with law enforcement agency when it comes to joint security drills. That would help us to know. I once engaged a particular community sometime last year. I was there far in the north, and I asked the head of security of that community. I asked him, I said, so if all of a sudden some guys drive in with motorbikes or vehicles and they're shooting, pop, what will you do? Guess what the head of security said? He said he was going to run. I said, you are going to do what? The entire community trust, hope, they are on you. And he said he was going to run because they have never thought about it. Now, what about if it happens? So it's high time community leaders, community engaged with law enforcement agency, let them come up with trainings, let them come up with how to respond. And it's not only law enforcement agency, you can also walk up to private securities to help give trainings on what's your response? How do you respond if this kind of scenario, happen? The next thing is we also have to use
very interesting
data.
Tips there, Mr. Adetuberu. Pardon me if I may come in. Very interesting. I'd like you to just address two related issues to your line of thought right now, which is the concern about, the trust quotient between the people and, the law enforcement agents. We just bandy the phrase, the police is our friend, but really, is that the thinking of Nigerians that the police is indeed their friend? So how do they, overcome that barrier to engaging law enforcement agents? And then you said some very critical things about community. And, northern communities come to mind at this time where cases of attacks are reported. And then they say they called for help and help didn't come until the damage had been done and people had been killed. So for those communities, particularly that do not even have police stations within, 300 meters, to quickly get help from, how do they overcome this peculiar challenge?
Thank you so much for this question. So let's talk about the trust. You asked about trust. Yes, trust has been damaged. And that's the unfortunate thing between the citizens and the law enforcement agencies. Most of the challenges we have is the trust issue. We don't trust our law enforcement agency. But I will start with saying that everyone and every organization has something we call the emotional bank account. Emotional bank account. And I would love everyone, I'm coming from the point of psychology now, psychology in getting the desired results. So if you don't care about your law enforcement agency, right, when there are issues, you are not likely to get a quick response from them. It's not supposed to be so, but that's the fact. That's the truth. So I would first say that before issues even arise, the first thing every community should do first is get to know the divisional police division in your community. Get to have a one-on-one relationship with the leadership, with the officers. It doesn't have to be everyone, but at least your representative. Let them get to do that. Engage them, not only when there are issues, even when there are no issues. When you start to build that kind of relationship, honestly, you are likely to get a faster response if there's a need that requires them to step in. Now, to your second question about communities where 300 meters, they don't have divisional police station. What should they do? That's part of the point where every community should also start, their voluntary. It's a voluntary thing. Or if you can't hire a private, if you can't set up a private security, or there's none, you can have a voluntary team that does patrols, and train them. We need to train them about what to do so that eventually they know what to look out for and how to respond. I do hope I've answered your question.
Yes, indeed, you have. So in that mix, can there also be engagement with private security firms, for those trainings on those drills? And, what are the implications that, would, come into consideration for those community leaders?
Sorry, can you come again?
So for those drills, I assume that there must be need to also engage private security firms for trainings, just for them to get those that knowledge. And for the community leaders that will be engaging private security firms, what are the considerations that they should be having?
Okay, so thank you so much. So the first consideration, not all private security firms are good, up to standard globally on what to do. So the first thing you also want to do is to do your research. You want to do your research on, check their track record. You want to check their track record. You want to check their strength, their capacity, right? Once you pay attention to all of this, what have they done? Then you can, engage them, to ensure your community is safe. So you want to check track record. You want to check their capacity. You want to check what they have done. Make inquiries about them. Don't just employ, because we also have some that disguise that they are private security, and unfortunately, they are even informants. They are informants to the bandits. They are informants to kidnappers. Informants to all of these people. And before you know it, you are inviting the people into your community. So you want to pay a very close attention and to check them properly, before engaging them and bringing them into your community.
Mr. Nat'l,
you also want to see what they've done. Where have they served? What are their client base, right? You want to pay attention to all of that. And then, you can engage them to know about drills. Drills are so important. Drills are so important.
All right, before we get to the nitty-gritty of the drills, I just felt like let's provide context to different parts of the country. The challenges of insecurity in the north is slightly different from those in the south. Let's say places like Lagos, for instance, compared to some other places in the north, it's a lot more safer. So is there a special approach if you're profiling this community security position? Because what you have done, for instance, is very effective when it comes to places like some part of the north, but in places like Lagos, where you live inside the next state, you don't even know your next door neighbor. How can this be achieved?
Thank you so much. We're in a world where we feel it's demure, not to know your neighbor. But in security, it's wrong. It's wrong. Because your neighbor could be the guy from the north that is doing banditry, and is living in Lagos. So it's so important. The first, I've always said, to everyone that cares to listen, that when you're living in an estate, you don't have to come and knock on my door. We don't have to really engage every now and then. But it's so important for the estate leadership, in such communities. Anybody coming into your community, you want to have their KYC. You want to know them. What do they do? If we start to engage all of these, then our value system will be returning back. But if we don't care, if you just say that, someone is blessed, okay, you don't even know how did he get that. You don't care. So it's so important. It's not right in security.
Just a moment. Isn't that the responsibility of the landlord? You'll be infringing on somebody's privacy by doing KYC on the person. So how do you go about that?
Now,
realistically,
it's the responsibility of the landlord and the community leadership. We must not leave it only to the landlord. The landlord is there to do business. He's just there to get his rent. So he may not really do due diligence about the person he's bringing in. So, but if the landlord knows that the community is going to ask questions about who you are letting into your property, right? Most landlords will start to do the right thing. So we must not leave it, just as, the reason why we have gone so deep into this rut of insecurity is because we left a lot of things, to law enforcement agencies, thinking that as community we don't have any responsibility, not knowing that it's first our responsibility. It's first our responsibility before we bring in the law enforcement, agencies into it. And that's what is called community policing. They are not police in the real facts, right? But they are ensuring that their community is safe. So it's not only we should not leave that only to the landlord, right? Because he's there to make business, he's there to make profit. He wouldn't want his house to be empty. So the community leaders have to start engaging landlord, by submitting KYC. We want to know the person. You want to know where he works. You want to know the family he has. You want to get guarantors.
Okay. All right.
If we start to do this, they do this abroad. They do this, outside in the developed countries. In developed countries, these are the things that they do. These are how they get to have intel. And before you know it, the neighbor can call the cops, saying that, oh, the person that moved into my neighbor is this, is that. So it's so important, for community leaders to wake up and take up this responsibility, not leave it only to the landlords.
Well, thank you so much. Ademola Adetuberu, security consultant, also the chief executive of the Barricade Executive Protection Limited. Thank you for always coming through whenever we call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears to the arts and culture. Join us again.
Time now to delve into the world of the visual artist and, to just taking all of those colors and beauty and brightening up your day. And to join us on this particular segment of the program is Ifeanyichukwu Oremeka. I'll be looking at her art journey. She's a contemporary artist and curator. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's very good to have you. So
Thank you.
It's okay to call you a visual art connoisseur and a visual artist. 2 in 1, right?
Well, yeah. Well, you could say that. I curate, and I also do arts and crafts.
Beautiful. So share with us your backstory. What brought about that interesting mix for you?
Okay. I have always been arty, even though I have my degree in the sciences. I've always been an arty person. I've always been drawn to things that are occurring in nature. I get my inspirations from all around me. So right from a very early age, I do try my hands on things. Pick up a stone, pick up a wood from the ground, put it together, take the upper part of a cloth and mix it to the lower part of another cloth. Then one day I just started to, start doing this, and that's how I started. And everything I'm doing today that I've started with my hands, I did not learn it. I just get my inspiration from nature, from God. Yeah, and that is how it has been for me. Yeah, for the curating part, I have always, like I said, I've always been active, and that was how a curating journey started when I met a particular artist, and I had a deep conversation with him and about his works, and he said, we really connected on what he does and what his art message is, and that was how I was able to help him, put together an art exhibition. I curated it, and that was how my curated journey started about 8 years ago. And since then until now, I have curated over 50 exhibitions for these artists and several other artists.
And we could talk about your brand, Afro Ornaments. You're wearing one, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's eco-friendly, and you just,
Yes.
assemble, things of nature to come up with beautiful visual pieces. Tell us about that.
Okay, so what I have on today, I have a neck piece. It's made with wood, it's made from coconut shell, and it's made from terracotta. So, like I said, many of the things I do, that I wear, are always things that are occurring in nature. Because for me, my craft, I don't just make craft. Even my jewelry, I like my jewelry to tell a story. It's talking about the resilience of Africans as a people, our beauty, the deepness and richness of our culture. And what I have on my wrist here is also made from ceramics. So I just keep putting these pieces together. I'm an advocate for sustainability. I want what you wear to be something that will not, quote unquote, necessarily harm Mother Nature, but you can still look beautiful while wearing it.
So let's talk a bit about, some of your exhibitions and some of your findings about what informs, what's in the mind of artists, of visual artists, particularly as we've navigated through many different times in the last decade or two. How much of the visual artists are still documenting our culture, our diversity, even our challenges. During COVID, you would see some of the artworks speaking to that particular time of, the world, even here in Nigeria. So talk to us about the transitions that you've observed in the themes of visual artists.
Okay, for me, art is an ever-growing theme. So, like you said, during COVID, people were addressing COVID. There are a lot of artists. We have a lot of contemporary artists today who their art addresses several things that you find occurring today. A lot of our culture are getting influenced by some other cultures. People are trying to show it. A lot of people think that Africa started from slavery. But we have artists who are, correcting this by showing you, by trying to show the world what we are, the beauty of what we are, our culture, our richness, our food. There are different expressions of art. Art is not only just what you do, you draw or you make with your hands. There are people who are saying it, there are people who are singing it, there are people who tell it as a story. So the different phases that art is going through, as a person personally, I'm enjoying it because getting involved in this has made me, has also broadened my horizon, my knowledge on what we were. Africa did not start with slavery. So that I know. We have artists who are addressing that. We have artists who are addressing what Africans are today, despite all what we have passed through, the pain, but with our perseverance. We have artists who are talking about it with their art today. We have artists who are also talking about our fashion. We are a very fashionable race. We are a lot of things. We have a lot of contemporary fashion nowadays. We have artists who are talking about that. So for me, we also have artists who are also talking about the deep-rooted issues that we are facing, either in government, in politics. So for me, I enjoy the broadness of it. Art is unending. It's a gift that keeps giving. So I enjoy the fact that several artists have different niche that they work with, and I just follow it.
Everyone who is doing the arts and perhaps is living abroad or is living in Nigeria that travels abroad, you, quote unquote, an unofficial culture diplomat. In your view, how much impact has our culture really made on the global scene?
My view, our culture has made a lot of impact. Because listen, Nigeria is everywhere. You walk into a place, you walk into a party, even for people who are not even Nigerians there, not necessarily Nigerians, but when the person is a black person, they're going to play Nigerian songs. You see people who want to identify with our fabric. People want to wear, what we wear. Even people call it culture. A lot of people wear our fabric. People are wearing our jewelry. As a person, I'm I have a lot of customers, collectors of my pieces who are not Nigerians. Nigerians making a lot of global impact, and I really hope that Nigerians we can talk about this more. We have a lot of positive impact on the world. I really hope that we can begin to push more of these our positive narratives, our culture, our fashion, our art, our food, the fufu, what fufu is doing all over the world. So the impact of Nigeria, our art, our culture globally is very huge. And I just hope that we as Nigerians will talk more about those things. We need to push it more, because if we don't tell our stories, someone else will tell it and may not tell it in our people. So, because we have a very beautiful impact globally about us, Nigerians as a people, we're just too much. So I think our impact globally is awesome for me.
So in your view, we now see Nigerian music being played, we see people wearing our things. How much of this can we turn into soft power? By that I mean, if you look at what they've done with Silicon Valley, if you look at what they've done, especially with Hollywood in California, with their movies, for instance, they made it look like if you see an American, you should just be careful. They did it through soft power, not just by their military. So what can we do to reposition our strength as Africans through art?
Okay, so what we can do, like I said before, telling our stories by ourselves. We also need the help of government. We cannot do it alone. We need the government to come in, and how they can come in? They can come in with funds, they can come in with grants in which to help people. You can also use the media. We just keep talking about these stories. Like I said, we need to tell our stories. I don't like the stereotype where people will say, oh, when you see a Nigerian, you just have to escape. You see these things on the media. If we begin to put out positive stories about us, about what we are doing, we should not create everything is not a joke. We should not make everything to a meme that we laugh about. This is the time. The world has our attention. The world is global. Use our media to push our works. The government too, they have a very huge part to play in it. Push our works. Push what we're doing positively. Nigerians have to consciously do this. Keep pushing our story. All the positive things we are doing. We have Nigerians almost in every sector you can think of in the world. Nigerians are there and they are representing very well. These people who are doing these things should be projected so that people will see. A lot of people, when they hear Nigeria, they don't only think of something negative. But no, there are a lot of beautiful things that we are doing. So we need Nigerians collective as a people, both home and diaspora, and we also need the government. So much, we really need the government on this. They need to help us in whatever way the government can help with, either with funding, either with some projection, whatever it is they need to do. They need to do that.
And that's what we do on the program, showcasing the works of Nigerians making a difference. Just in 10 seconds, for those who say that, look, I never chop, I haven't eaten breakfast, so why should I hang this in my living room? So what would you say to them? For the connoisseurs I've met in my life, most of them form the elite bloc. So what would you say to Nigerians who say, no, I'd rather take care of my tummy than hang an art piece in my living room?
Okay, so for this, I'm going to say this. I also want people to change this narrative that you need to be a millionaire to own an art piece. Now, there are art pieces that go even for as low as 5,000 naira.
All right.
And the beauty of art is that it keeps appreciating. It never depreciates.
Okay.
Please note that these things exist. If you need more information on this, you can talk to me.
All right.
Me, you will get it. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Ifeanyi Chukwu Oremeka, contemporary artist and curator. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
And we now switch gears. So Anita Ochai, women have it today on the program. She's a trainee process engineer, Ceflam SGL. We're talking about girls and women in science. Anita, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Within the short time we have, for those who don't understand the big grammar I just spoke, maybe you explain what you do.
Okay, so I'm a training process engineer at Ceflam SGL, which is an oil and gas servicing company. So what we do as process engineers generally is we design processes that convert raw materials to the finished product. So in the oil and gas industry, we design processes for the exploration and production of oil and gas, and then processes for refining this oil, the crude oil, into petrol, kerosene, which we use on a daily basis.
Fantastic. So how many of you girls are there? You know, when we talk to engineers who are women, they say, I found out I'm the only black person, I'm the only girl. How many of you?
Oh no, we're quite a few. We're quite a few number of girls. Top of my head, I can count, like, let's see, that's in the engineering space too. I can count like 5, 6.
Okay. And 5 compared to, you know, the population in that field would be minimal from the perspective of a few. So what does it feel like to be the only woman or one of the very few women in the room, and how are you perceived by the other gender? You know, just for us to have an understanding of the challenges that women and girls face in STEM.
Okay, I would say it's more of, but with the recent developments and all, women are given a voice, at least we're given the opportunity to take on some tasks, and we are being put through on how to effectively deliver in this space. So it's, we need more women in this space, but it's also falls back on the underrepresentation and the participation of women to actually show up in this space, because there are most women that don't even recognize that there are opportunities like this for them, so they don't even apply. They don't apply for opportunities like this. But in this space, the other gender try their possible best to ensure that we're comfortable. And like my company, for example, they prioritize they speak against, advocate against sexual harassment and the like. So it's conducive for women in my space.
All right, just as we close, what challenges have you faced and how are you overcoming them?
Okay, challenges that I've faced. More of imposter syndrome. Yes, imposter syndrome is one challenge that I've faced a lot. That is feeling like I'm not even supposed to be in this space. And one thing I do is I try to encourage myself. I seek support from my networks. I have a good relationship with people around me, so I get encouraged. And another challenge is wanting to deliver. So I try my possible best to always put in more work in order to represent the gender. Yes, so that helps me fight against the underrepresentation challenge that I faced.
And so for other young women like yourself who are watching you right now, and you're talking about, something so specific and in a male-dominated field, and they would like to also achieve the same feat as you, I'd like you to address them, talk to them about what it means to be a processing engineer and, what they have to do to be able to stand and speak like you very soon.
Okay, I would say they should take on opportunities. They should show up. Yes, they should show up, because if you are not visible, people will not know what you do. They should join associations, because associations has really helped me, attending conferences, seeking mentorship. So those are like steps that they can take, and they should also try their possible best to improve on their technical skills. But science, STEM is not just about, yes, we need the technical knowledge, but we also need the creativity, we need the innovation. So it's not strictly, okay, I love maths. You also have some things to offer, and STEM has become dynamic because of the technological advancement and the global climate change that we're experiencing. Yeah, so there are different ways that students can come in science.
We're super proud of you, Anita Ojai, trainee process engineer at Ceflam SGL. Thank you so much, and keep the good work.
Thank you.
And continue to make us proud.
Yeah.
Well, that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time. But before we go, let's say that tomorrow is Valentine's Day, and it's going to be a special one on the morning brief. So we want you to be part of that special tomorrow, okay? Valentine's, whatever you're doing, I know it's early in the morning, so I'm sure you've not gone out to anywhere, but maybe you can take pictures of the dresses you want to wear, or the gift you bought for that special person.
Of your red.
Take pictures of you watching the morning brief and just, send it to us. So 2 pictures. Pictures of you watching the morning brief and maybe pictures of that thing you want to use to surprise that special someone. Add it to that picture. Send it to us on our WhatsApp number. So the WhatsApp number is on your screen. You can send videos, you can send pictures. So just send it. We want to celebrate you. Tomorrow is your day. So that's the number. You can 0913 40 40 270. So that's the number actually. That's our WhatsApp number. Send that picture of you watching the morning brief, and also send picture of the special gift you want to send to that special person. Caller.
Yes, indeed. So we'll be expecting that for our big celebration on the morning brief tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Remember to celebrate responsibly and celebrate to make memories with your loved ones. Thank you so much for watching. Kade is unavoidably absent as we wrap up the show, but of course, he'll be back again tomorrow for the Valentine edition. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Ozama. Bye-bye.